So we have 3 great lightning talks ready for you, and let me just set this up for you with some logistics. So the purpose of these talks are to talk about a quarterly goal that your team may have reached, or a significant milestone or project that you've been working on. And it's also open to the community if they want to present. So we'll have presentations last about 10 minutes, and that includes time for questions. If you're local here, there is a microphone where you can ask questions. If you are on the Hangout, you can ask questions on the IRC channel. The channel is Wikimedia-Tech, and Rachel is monitoring that channel, and she can relay questions via the microphone. So let's get started with our first talk of the day. So Layla will be presenting link recommendation. Hi, Layla.
Hi, Kevin. Thank you. So I'm going to give a quick overview of the state of the research and implementation of the work we're doing for hyperlink recommendation. This is a joint work with all the people who you see their names in the bottom. So before I start, I want to just bring all of us on the same page with what we mean by hyperlinks. So this is a Wikipedia page. And what we are talking about here are basically the hyperlinks that are in the main body of the text. We are not so worried about the articles, the hyperlinks which are to the left-hand side of this page, mostly focusing in whatever is in the main body all the way to the bottom of the page. Our goal is, given a page and given a set of hyperlinks already present in that page or not, to be able to say what links should be added, what hyperlinks should be added to that page. Our motivation is this. Basically, Wikipedia links, we know that Wikipedia links are important. Users use them for navigating through the website, going from one article to the next, and to basically gain context about the content that they're reading about. We know that they're using the hyperlinks basically to explore the website. And we know also that Wikipedia changes very frequently. So around 7,000 articles are added to Wikipedia every day. This brings a challenge for keeping the structure of this network in shape. Basically, every article that is added and is not deleted after a few days technically needs to be connected to other articles. And the question is, within a language, let's say in English Wikipedia, if you have 4 or 5 million articles and a new article is added, we need to figure out which articles should link to this article and which articles this article should link to. And lastly, Wikipedia links that are added by human editors are on average used very rarely. This is something that we saw when we looked at the data. So basically 66% of the links that are added by human editors to Wikipedia are not used at all when you look 2 months after they are added. You see that the number also drops very rapidly. So basically, if you're looking at links that are clicked at least 10 times, you see that we're slightly over 10%, basically. So this basically brings a challenge for us, because even the gold standard of Wikipedia, that are basically our editors who add links to the text, their links, some of them, many of them, are not clicked at least a couple of months after when you look at the structure of the data, the hyperlinks, and how they are used. So what we did is that we looked at the, Dario, I think we are taking questions at the end. Is it? Yeah? Okay. So there was a question from the room. So we used 2 major data sets. One is the Wikipedia data itself. So we looked at the linked graph of Wikipedia. These are the linked graph. The edges are basically the hyperlinks that are connecting the pages, and the vertices or nodes are the main namespace articles. We also looked at the full revision history of English Wikipedia from 2001 to 2015. We looked at server logs. These are requests to every page on Wikipedia, on English Wikipedia in this example. And whatever I'm showing you here is about English Wikipedia. The methods are language agnostic, so they can be implemented in different languages. And then what we did using the server logs was that we extracted navigation traces by basically stringing together the URL of the request pages with the referrer URL. Just so you get a sense what this trace is, how can it look like? this is an example. This is a user that starts with Potasenia scintillans. That's the first article the user starts from, goes to bioluminescence, and then walks to list of bioluminescence organisms, and then goes to these 3 articles: viperfish, flashlight fish, and lanternfish. And then from there, from one of these articles, the user clicks on category bioluminescence organisms. So this is one trace from the many traces that people try when they get on Wikipedia. And what we want to do is basically we want to look at this trace, and ideally what we want to say is that many people go on top to basically bioluminescence, and we see that after 2 steps they end up being in lanternfish. So the idea is that there probably needs to be a link between bioluminescence and lanternfish. That's kind of the whole idea. You look at the trace, you see the paths that are repeated many times, and you say that, okay, this probably a direct path needs to be added. So the methodology that we use, I'm not going to go through too much detail here, but basically the operating assumptions and observations are this. Links should be added where we think they're going to be used, where we predict there's going to be usage. There is a concept of diminishing returns, meaning the more links you add to a page, the less value you get in terms of increase of usage of that link. So instead of focusing on one page and, for example, finding the one page that has the highest traffic on Wikipedia and adding a lot of links to that page, you're better off spreading the links across the projects. And the last thing that we learned when we contacted some volunteers is that we realized that editors would like to be in the loop. So we want to design systems in which humans eventually enter these hyperlinks to Wikipedia. And as a result, we have a resource or budget constraint, meaning we cannot say, tomorrow we want to add 1 million hyperlinks. We need to see how many people are available and how many links they can add. And that whatever problem we solve needs to take this resource into account. So basically what we do, given this information, is that we solve a budget constraint problem. We say that we want to maximize an objective function, given the constraint that the number of links that we're adding should be limited by the capacity that we have or the budget that we have. These are kind of some of the examples that you get once you solve this problem. So for example, going back to the bioluminescence article, which is a good article from Natural Sciences, you see that if you add glowworm to this article, it is expected that 0.3% of the traffic to that article goes through glowworm, basically, once that link is added. You can see the lanternfish and luminol, basically with the same predicted click-throughs. We did evaluations. I'm going to skip that part because there's not much time here. But basically, now the question is, how can we use these predictions in practice? So what we're doing right now is that we're working on a public API. This is going to be something of this nature. You will provide a page title and desired number of links to be recommended for that page, and then we will give you the best links that should be added to that page. Obviously, these are recommendations. You should use your judgment to see whether these should be added or not. And then we are also experimenting with recommendations as part of the visual editor. So we are working on an instance on Labs, and the goal is basically if that instance is used and the editors are happy with, that moves as a beta feature to the website. Just to give you a sense how this will look like eventually, this is design in progress. It's not a fully fleshed design, but basically you go to visual editor of Edgar Degas, and you'll see something in the bottom that says there are N suggestions for you. You can say, no, I don't want to see it, or you can say, I want to see the suggestions. And once you click on them, there are basically missing hyperlink suggestions for you here that is telling you this hyperlink should be added. For example, impressionism should be added to this page. The anchor text may or may not exist. So as an editor, you should basically figure out whether you want to use the current anchor text or you want to add more content to this page around the impressionism. And then you can decide basically whether you want to add this hyperlink to the page or not. So this is basically all what I wanted to share with you today. And I'm happy to take questions now. Hello.
Hello. Whoops. Yes. Can you hear me? Exciting work. Two questions, I guess, mostly to try and help sharpen the narrative and also clarify some of what you said. So at some point when you showed the one of the first plots, this one, it looks like the way you're framing this, saying the links added by human editors. It sounds like this is begging the question. Couldn't you describe this plot as saying Wikipedia links are on average used very rarely, right? There's nothing special about these links being by human editors.
No, so the point I want to make here is basically we want to have humans in the loop, right? And we are proud of having human editors in the loop, and they are proud of their work and what they're doing, and they are the gold standard of Wikipedia, right? They are the ones who decide basically what links should be added. So if they, with all the judgments and all the experience that they have had through the years, decide that they want to add a link, and this link does not get used, then it's important for us to look at it from the perspective that a human was in the loop.
All right. So yeah, I'm just thinking whether this is really about human editors, about links in general, regardless of how they were created. Because this sounds basically, oh, there are suboptimal decisions that are being made by humans without algorithmic support.
Right. Looking at bots would be more complicated, right? Because we know that they do basically in many instances worse, right?
Yeah.
So to say that the gold standard is already this.
Suboptimal. Yeah.
Right.
So that was the first thing. The second is actually the desirability of increasing links. So we know that people might be trying to find something that they end up visiting with a high probability, but we also know that by, say, overlinking, we will decrease the probability for people to stay on the same page you're reading. And I'm wondering if you guys have thought through like the implications from like from the perspective of a reader and a learner, what that means basically.
Right, that's a good question. So there are, I can say two things to that. One is the concept of diminishing returns, because the objective functions that we consider basically for optimizing take into account the concept of diminishing returns. So if there are already a lot of links on a page, even if there's a lot of traffic to that page, adding a new link will give you less than adding that in another link to another page. So sort of the algorithm by design is not going to suggest so much of overlinking, but overlinking can still happen. Or and then that's the reason that you have the human. That's one of the reasons that you have human in the loop, right? So somebody will look at the page and basically decide that no, there is enough content in this page, there is enough linking in this page. No, this recommendation is not good, and we don't need to add it, right?
I have a question from IRC. Are the links added through the recommendation system read back by the algorithm coming up with the recommendations? If so, isn't there a risk of the recommendation quality worsening?
Right. So we have not thought about the feedback loop yet. This is a good question. One thing that we have thought about is if somebody says that, no, this is not a good recommendation. So that one we want to keep track of. We have not thought about fully how we're going to use that information, but that's definitely something that we need to take into account.
And are there plans to do similar opposite analysis suggesting links worth removing, which would probably help direct more traffic to the useful links?
Yeah, we have not worked on that. That's something that we have discussed briefly, but there's definitely research to be done on the fact that if a link has been there and has not been used for a long time, basically what should be the methodology for suggesting the removal of such links. We have not worked on that yet.
I have one last question. So 60% don't get clicks. Do you have any sense of what those links are? Is there something that they have in common or a group of them?
Yeah, there's so many of them that I don't know. Bob, do you have is there a pattern? Did you see any pattern in these links that were not clicked? There are like 800,000 links in total, and this is 66% of that.
Yeah, no, we didn't look at this systematically, but just by eyeballing, it's wild. It's anything.
Okay.
One quick note: when we did when we analyzed Wikigrok, we found some pretty terrifying numbers when it comes to how far people scroll in the page. Like people simply, in most cases, don't go past the fold, below the fold. The speed at which this is the case is really impressive. So anything you could say that anything that is below the fold in general has a pretty low probability of being seen, let alone clicked. So I think like positioning is actually a big factor here.
Right. Just to add to this, all this is based on desktop observations. So take this with a grain of salt in the sense that we need to look at mobile and see how this works on mobile.
Cool. Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's give a hand to Leila. All right. I'm going to go back to the front. So our next presenter is online. It is Brian Bibber, and he's going to give us an update on video encoding.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but we don't see you yet. Give us a second.
Let me. There we go. How's that?
Yeah.
A little
See
better.
you now. Thank you.
All right. Let's find the present button. And can you still see me?
Yes.
Good. Okay. So we have some video updates. As a lot of people may know, there have been major infrastructural difficulties with getting video and audio really widely usable on Wikipedia. There's a lot of people interested in continuing to push on that, but we've had all these low-level problems. So we're starting to actually put some work into that, and things are going to be pretty cool, I think. So the recent situation with basic playback has been that we use these OGG and WebM formats that are freely licensed, open source, all that wonderful hippy-dippy stuff that we love, but it works fantastically in Chrome and Firefox, but not in IE or Safari. A couple of years ago, we did a RFC on Commons to see if we could enable the MPEG-4 family of formats, which Microsoft and Apple favor, and it just didn't go through. We had a lot of problems getting the idea of a patented format that requires a license fee for some circumstances to be acceptable. So we simply had zero compatibility on IE and Safari. So that was kind of not cool. Additionally, if you wanted to upload your files, you had to convert them into proper formats. That's something that we're still working on, but we do now have a solution for playback. We used to have a Java shim called Cortado, which could play back OGG files on any browser as long as it had the Java plugin. If you've been following browser technology in the last few years, you have probably noticed that the Java plugin is very seriously deprecated. Due to a series of security problems with it, it's basically disabled by default virtually everywhere, and Java just isn't as popular as it used to be. So this new version is based on JavaScript instead of Java. And it requires relatively new browsers, but it just works in current versions of Safari, the new Edge browsers on Windows 10, and in Internet Explorer 10 and 11, which works on Windows 7 and Windows 8. And that actually requires Flash for audio, but only for audio. So it's the absolute minimum piece of Flash that we could use. Additionally, of course, we have mobile devices. Mobile traffic is getting higher and higher, and we still need a solution for mobiles. So on Android, you actually have OGG and WebM support built into the operating system. And it actually works in our mobile view, although it's a little awkward. There's no special support for video, so you get potentially a really high-resolution version that might not actually work well on a mobile device. But it does basically work. Now, the OGVJS JavaScript shim actually works in Safari on mobile devices, but only on the new 64-bit devices. So we need to do some more work to get that actually integrated into the mobile view. But on 64-bit devices, it actually works great for both video and audio, and on older devices, it still works for audio. So we're going to still do a little more work on that, and hopefully in a few weeks we'll have a mobile interface. In general, you may also have noticed that the interface for video and audio playback is kind of terrible. And that's mainly because it just hasn't been supported or maintained in a few years. So me and the DJ, Dirk-Jan, are working on replacing the front-end code for video and audio playback, moving off of the old version of the Kaltura player that we've been using and moving towards Video.js, which is an open-source wrapper for HTML5 video that also supports fallback plugins. So this is commonly used for Flash plugins on old browsers, but in our case, we would use the JavaScript shim for Safari and Internet Explorer. So that lets us plug everything together, and it will actually work on mobile. So that's going to be one of the things that enables us to have a mobile interface for video and audio that actually is easy to use, attractive, and actually works. In addition, on the format front, we have wanted to get VP9 video working. If you're not familiar with VP9, it's basically the new version of the codec in WebM video. It works pretty nice, but it requires updated software, which we need to actually get working. The primary use case for this right now actually is just getting all the uploaded files working, because people have been able to upload VP9 WebM files and then they discover they don't work. So we have to actually roll out some upgrades, which we've been preparing in the last few weeks. I've gotten some great support from the ops department on getting test servers going, and that should be working again in the next few weeks. So, what are all these codecs anyway? I've been talking, OGG, WebM, VP9. What is all this stuff? What does it do? Basically, the codec is the part that actually compresses your video into a smaller file that is small enough that you can actually ship data around. If you were to use uncompressed video, you would just never be able to ship it around on the internet. Now, the codecs that we have are Theora for OGG, which is an old codec, which was actually originally suggested as the standard baseline codec for HTML5 video a few years ago. But not only did Apple and Microsoft fight against it, it also did have some technical limitations in that it's just not as good as some of the newer codecs. So if you actually compare these different codecs, you can see that you can get better quality in much less data, which means that you can download a smaller file for the same quality. So another reason that we want to get VP9 working is that we can use a lot less bandwidth for the same video. It takes literally 4 times as much bandwidth for a OGG Theora video to have the same quality as a WebM VP9 video. This also means that if we're actually balancing video based on bandwidth, which is what we'd like to do for the smoothest possible streaming, that what you're going to do is actually balance based on how much data you can ship, but select a higher resolution if you can play back the better codec. So anything that's using the JavaScript shim needs currently to use OGG Theora because that's all that's supported with good enough performance, which means that you're going to get a lower resolution. Whereas if we're shipping you WebM VP8 or VP9, we can increase the resolution. And using the same configuration that would otherwise support a low resolution 640 by 360 image, we can ship the same amount of data but give you a high definition 1280 by 720 image, which is going to look a lot better on your desktop screen. Probably won't make as big a difference on mobile, but on mobile, again, we're more interested in the network bandwidth. But there is one problem with codecs, which is that the newer codecs, although they compress much more efficiently, they take a lot longer to do it. So when you upload a file, what happens is we will take that file and then convert it to well, in the future it will be 3 formats. Currently 2 formats, Ogtheora and WebMVP8, at various different resolutions so that we can select the appropriate file for playback based on the actual conditions of can you play OGG, can you play WebM, how much bandwidth do you have, how much CPU power do you have. Picking the appropriate file is still a tricky thing that, that needs more work. But doing those VP9 files is going to take literally 15 times as long as the Ogtheora files, and it's still going to be 3 or 4 times as long as the current WebM files that we have. So actually rolling those out in the future is going to depend on, do we have enough server power to make those files in a reasonable amount of time? So we're going to have to investigate that. Now, meanwhile, getting back to all those other things you can do with video, how do you actually get video into the system? So there's a few different projects that are in play at the moment, mostly in the community. One is the so-called Schnitt server, which some Germans and Swiss and Austrians have been working on. And that is currently an experimental server hosted by Internet Archive, which can accept files in any format. So even if you're recording in MP4, because most of your cameras produce that, you can upload all your footage to the Schnitt server. It converts it to WebM, and you don't have to worry about how to convert it. Once you've finished editing, you can then do a one-click publish of your file to Wikimedia Commons. And not only that, it also provides a server-side utility for the Melt video editor format. There are several open-source video editors based on this around this format, including Kdenlive and Shotcut, which is cross-platform. So that's actually available on Windows and Macintosh as well as Linux, which a lot of these open-source things tend to target first. So it actually makes it possible to share your editing project between multiple people. You keep your original source footage on the Schnitt server, and when you do local edits based on the WebM, which you can actually share without the patent license worries, and then when you're finished, you render out an edited file based on the original source footage, so you don't have generational loss from all these lossy video codecs. And this basically makes it possible to really do collaborative editing between multiple people who are physically distributed. And that's really, really cool. Right now, of course, it has very limited user interface. It's all very experimental, and there's very little support for it. So I'm hoping that more people will get interested in working with the folks working on the Schnitt server and other related issues. Another project is called Popcorn.js or Popcorn Maker, which is a Mozilla project that has been being worked on for a while, which basically lets you take videos, image clips, etc., and in the browser assemble them into a compound video that basically lets you do basic nonlinear video editing right there in your browser. So one of the Mozilla interns has been working on making that primarily client-side, so it has fewer server-side dependencies, and there's a lot of interest in combining that with the Schnitt server backend so that we have an actual on-the-web video assembly editing system that can be used much more easily. So there's a lot of really cool potential, and I believe the plan is for some interested parties to get together at Wiki Conference USA and talk about some more work on that. There's also some other potential related projects with non-destructive editing directly integrated into the wiki. We'll see where those end up. Right now, everything's kind of in skunkworks testing research mode, So I'm really excited about what could happen in the next few months, and I hope that some of you out there who are interested will help and pitch in. So that's about all I've got for now. Are there any questions?
Oh, S is coming with a question. Thanks.
Awesome.
Hi. I was wondering, can you explain how this relates to the MW embed JavaScript I see on pages?
So MW embed basically is a wrapper around the Cultura player, which sort of integrates into MediaWiki. And that's the layer that me and the DJ are working on modernizing. So we're basically replacing the older MW embed code with Video.js-based code, which will be much easier to hack on. Michael Dale, back in the day, also did a lot of experimentation in terms of taking some of that stuff and making assembly of clips and editing possible on the wiki. A lot of those ideas actually went into Mozilla's Popcorn Maker. So adapting that stuff back to the wiki is sort of bringing some of those older ideas back home. So yes, we're very interested in getting some of that running.
Well, I had another question. So it seems like the main reason that people get videos working is just by putting a link file mycutevideo dot some extension. So you're sort of under the covers going to be changing that on Safari and IE to use this new technique, or is there something that people have to do to sort of make it work?
You don't have to do anything. It literally just works. We actually did a preliminary test deployment last week, and it is now live on Commons. If you pull it up if you pull up a page with a video on it in Safari on desktop right now, it will work. So that's very exciting. People literally had to do nothing special in their wiki pages.
Awesome, thanks.
Cool.
Cool, and we have a question from Pine. Oh, hang on, Pine, we don't hear you.
Is that okay?
Yep.
Yep, I hear you now.
Okay, all right, good. Press the wrong button there. Okay, so the first is about file compression versus CPU and GPU power. So I know from my previous experience that sometimes when a file is heavily compressed, it can take a lot of CPU or GPU power to get that uncompressed and playable. So I'm curious if you could talk a little bit more about that trade-off of compression versus CPU and GPU power.
Yes, there is definitely a trade-off in playback as well as the compression time. And that's actually why I'm using Augtheora in the JavaScript layer. So if you view an image or view a video in Chrome or Firefox, by default, right now you're going to get a WebM version, which is using the VP8 codec, which is relatively powerful. It's not as good as the newer VP9, but it's much stronger than the older Augtheora. I actually have that working in JavaScript as well, but it's about 4 or 5 times slower than Augtheora. So that's why we're using the Augtheora decoder in the JavaScript version, because it gets playback working much more effectively on the slower platform, because there is still overhead in using JavaScript versus using native code. I hope to be able to improve that further as browsers improve and with more GPU support, but that's going to take time to actually figure out. So what we have working right now is definitely a product of that trade-off.
Okay, great. And my other question is about Upload Wizard more generally, and I'm not sure if this is something you're working on, but my personal experience with Upload Wizard on Commons is that it works just fine for simple things, but as soon as I do give it a batch upload of 100 files or start working with video, it just consumes hours of time, and the end result may or may not be successful. So I'm wondering if you can just talk a little bit about work going on in Upload Wizard in general to make that a more pleasant user experience.
Yeah, Mark and some of the other folks are working on Upload Wizard. Basically some old tasks left over from the multimedia team pre-reorg are still going on. So definitely that's still under active work. I'm not working on it myself, but I see those commits going by, and I see them talking in the Wikimedia Multimedia channel on IRC. So if you have any questions for them, hop right in and ask them. They're pretty responsive.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Cool.
Right. Thank you very much, Brian. Let's give him a hand.
Thank you.
Cool. So our final presentation will be queued up by Pine. So Pine, go ahead.
Okay, great. So I realize this set of lightning talks is primarily about technology. I'd like to showcase this video of end users who are working successfully with Wikimedia's existing tools. This is a video that was produced by students at the Monterey Institute of Technology and Higher Education, otherwise known as Tec de Monterey. The institute is among the largest private universities in Latin America. It was the first university in Latin America to be connected to the internet, and today it's known for its internationally ranked business school and its high volume of Mexican patent applications. In this video, you'll see that students and instructors in a variety of departments find Wikipedia useful to them as readers, and that some of them find personal satisfaction in contributing text, imagery, and multimedia on the Wikimedia projects. One of my hopes for showcasing this video at a tech-focused set of lightning talks is that it gives moral support to the concept of continuing to invest WMF resources in multimedia, as well as in translation tools and in tools like Wikimetrics, which help program leaders to analyze the impact of our programs. Finally, I'm hoping that this video helps us to reflect on, as Anna Koval says, how Wikipedia's existence and endurance is something of a miracle. There's that wonderful quote, "Wikipedia works in practice, not in theory." We can be grateful that, despite Wikipedia's many problems, we have the privilege of working on one of humanity's most amazing projects. Lee, who's an instructor at Tec de Monterey, is here with us today. She's led the Wikimedia education program at Tec de Monterey for about 4 years, and she's available after the video to answer questions. So with that, let's watch the video.
Imagino un mundo
donde cada persona del planeta
tenga acceso libre
a la suma total de conocimiento humano. Eso es lo que estamos haciendo.
Eso es lo que estamos haciendo.
Eso es lo que estamos haciendo.
Wikipedia es una enciclopedia muy especial, una enciclopedia en donde todos colaboramos para construir en común el conocimiento. Y creo que este es uno de los objetivos hacia donde debe apuntar la institución académica hoy en día.
Y Paola, toma uno, como profesora hablando.
El TEC de Monterrey es la primera institución en México que incorpora oficialmente Wikipedia como una herramienta de aprendizaje. Estamos convencidos de que la colaboración con Wikipedia es una contribución a la producción colectiva del conocimiento, a la difusión de la cultura mexicana y en general a la difusión de conocimiento en el habla hispana.
Como profesor aliento a mis alumnos a que lo revisen como una fuente de información básica y muy completa para que aclaren los temas que lleguen a tener duda.
No tenemos preguntas acerca de un tema en específico o cuando queremos profundizar acerca de un tema.
Me beneficiaría mucho porque así ya no tendría que consultar otras fuentes y me ahorraría mucho tiempo en hacer mi tarea.
El usar Wikipedia en la escuela se me hace una de las herramientas más importantes.
Es muy sencillo recabar información de ahí. Simplemente buscas lo que quieres saber y es tu primera fuente de información.
La síntesis de aminoácidos es un tema que no existía hasta ese momento, no, ignoro las razones. Lo que hice fue buscar fuentes, tanto en libros como en artículos médicos especializados. Escribí el artículo y bueno, hasta donde yo lo dejé meramente un artículo escolar, y lo dejé después de esa clase. Posteriormente lo reviso hace pocos meses, a inicio de año, 2015, y es impresionante cómo ha cambiado. La gente lo ha editado y se ha enriquecido mucho.
Cuando esto empezó hace 3, 4 años, pues la idea que se tenía de Wikipedia no era muy apropiada para el ámbito académico. Entonces lo primero que empezamos a hacer a través de conferencias y participación en algunos foros es cambiar ese enfoque y dar a conocer el trabajo con Wikipedia, no solo como consulta, sino principalmente con la colaboración directamente con Wikipedia.
Yo soy Jordi, estudio Ingeniería en Desarrollo Sustentable. En octubre fui a tomar fotos a Miski por el Día de Muertos. Entré al concurso de un Día de Muertos estilo Wiki, donde conocí por primera vez cómo aportar fotografías a Wikimedia. Una de las fotos fue seleccionada como la mejor fotografía del concurso. Esta experiencia realmente se sintió muy padre porque la foto acabó en el artículo de Día de Muertos oficial de Wikipedia. Es una foto que la gente puede ver en cualquier momento, te da mayor exposición y además permite que transmitas tus ideas y tus sentimientos respecto a un evento con todo el mundo.
Este proyecto fue realizado por Natalia Pérez Inencia, con el objetivo de grabar palabras en español que tuvieran relación con la historia y cultura de México. Barbacoa, cuya pronunciación puede resultar complicada para extranjeros. Este proyecto fue grabado en la cabina de audio por los alumnos del Tecnológico de Monterrey. Ahora mismo estas palabras están disponibles en Wikicommons para todo el mundo y todos los usuarios.
Mi nombre es Naomi Guadare Acachi, alumna de Animación Digital, cuarto semestre y estudio en el Tecnológico de Monterrey. Empecé a buscar en Wikipedia y pues casi no había animaciones como tal. Entonces pues empecé a investigar, empecé a hablar con mis amigos médicos y así. Primero animé el brazo, los tríceps y los bíceps, y ya con eso aporté tanto de la pierna como de la mano. Entonces creo que fueron 8 videos en total de animaciones de músculos. Yo creo que muchos animadores podrían pues trabajar en Wikipedia igual para hacer este tipo de imágenes o el tipo de videos que te ayuden a explicar lo que las palabras no pueden.
Lo que sucede es que estamos llevando el conocimiento más allá de la institución. Porque por lo mismo, los mismos alumnos que en el momento que se gradúan y en el momento que ya empiezan su vida profesional, van a seguir recurriendo a Wikipedia para obtener cierta información. O sea, no es que de repente uno deje de estudiar y ya dejamos de usar Wikipedia. Al momento de visibilizar el uso de esta herramienta, se está legitimando que Wikipedia es una fuente confiable. Y en los casos en donde no sea, se usa como una herramienta académica para profundizar acerca y para mejorar la información.
Bueno, hola, ¿qué tal? Yo me llamo Marta Gómez y soy profesora de cátedra aquí en el Campus Ciudad de México.
Yo les doy clases de español, doy español, he dado español básico o español avanzado, me llamo Artemisa Martínez.
Nosotras decidimos hacer un viaje.
El primer día fuimos a tomar fotos a Tepoztlán.
Y decidimos reunir alumnos extranjeros con alumnos mexicanos para que tomaran fotografías, hiciera una especie de expedición o wiki expedition.
Y el segundo día nos dedicamos a trabajar en la descripción de las fotos.
Y lo que se hizo fue subir las fotografías a Wiki Images.
Hacían las descripciones, la descripción de la foto en español. Luego hicieron una traducción al inglés y se buscó que tuviera, como teníamos la riqueza de tantos países, que hubiera una tercera traducción. Hubo traducciones al sueco, al ruso,
portugués, alemán, español o inglés,
al francés, por ahí hay incluso filipino. La aportación a Wikipedia es precisamente que haya fotos de Tepoztlán que sean inéditas, y lo importante era que fueran fotos que en verdad fueran de Tepoztlán.
De alguna manera fue actualizar a mis alumnos a que ellos pueden publicar, pueden hacer textos, pueden subir imágenes.
I couldn't be more impressed with an education program than I have been with what I have seen here at Tec de Monterrey.
Bueno, pues la semana ahí en realidad fue un experimento que hizo el tecnológico en donde alumnos de carrera, de profesional, trabajaron durante 3 días en distintos proyectos que se relacionaban a su área. En el caso de Wikipedia hubo un editatón donde los alumnos nos dedicamos a traducir, a modificar, a crear nuevos artículos y también nos pusimos a subir fotos, audios, videos y hacer animaciones para Wikimedia. Fue realmente una experiencia retadora porque te das cuenta que detrás de Wikipedia hay un trabajo muy grande para tener esta información ordenada y también que sea entendible para el público en general. Y fue una experiencia agradable porque uno también puede contribuir a la causa.
Hay muchísima información en Wikipedia que podemos utilizar no solamente en el estudio, sino en nuestra vida diaria.
Me gustaría hacer artículos para pues, que la demás gente pueda usarlos y se les haga más fácil en un futuro sus tareas o sus trabajos.
Me gustaría aportar ayudando a mejorar los artículos que ya existen o a publicar nuevos para que los artículos tengan mejor información verídica y confiable.
We as Wikimedians are in a way like preachers or proselytizers. We are spreading the good word about Wikipedia and how important it is and what a miracle it is. And it's different to say it than to see people doing it. And when I walked around this library and I saw every single laptop on the Wikipedia site, not just reading it, editing it, it was the best feeling.
All right, any questions? That was amazing. Oh. I have a question. Yeah, this is an easy question. It's like, what do you think is the hardest part to get students editing? Like, what's the most friction? Yeah, so in your experience, what's the hardest hurdle for a student to make a successful edit?
Okay, it's in the beginning. It's getting used to the interface. And they do need support, physical, I mean, not physical in the sense of, they need somebody there to get them started because it's just too overwhelming to just jump into the site and expect them to do it. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we heard you.
Okay.
Yeah, so Dario here. I had another question, and I'm wondering what motivates the selection of topics. I know that typically this is done in the context of a course. So in general, there's not much flexibility when it comes to choosing a topic that the students are passionate about. I'm wondering, looking at this video, there's a lot of excitement around Mexican culture. So I'm wondering, if there's anything to learn from this experience when it comes to tapping the passion of individuals about their own culture, their own, what they're experts in, which is not just like the topic of a course assignment, but something that they have direct experience with.
Okay, I should mention that at Today Monterrey, we don't just use Wikipedia as part of coursework. I know that's the most common way of using it, and I'm not saying there aren't classes that do it. In fact, I've got about 5 classes this week that I need to do presentations to get them started, and that's not even mine yet. But what we have done is we've been experimenting. Really, the last 4 years or so that, have been about experimenting with how to get students involved with Wikipedia, and in some ways to match up what they know and what they're interested in and what Wikipedia needs. One good thing you could say about the fact that Wikipedia needs so much is that we have a lot of ways of getting students involved, and so we've been kind of experimenting with it. So all that technology-based stuff that shows up in the video came to some extent because we have resources here at the campus, such as the sound booth that you saw, the video equipment, and we have students that take classes in doing this kind of thing. And the fact that many of our students simply are not interested in writing, or, I hate to say it, to some extent not capable of it, at least to the extent that we would like them to in order to write good articles on Wikipedia. So between the two, we try to give teachers and students as much flexibility as possible to get involved. So we started, for example, even just to promote the idea, as Lourdes was mentioning earlier, the resistance of professors against Wikipedia. We had for several years the photo contest just so that students would get their fingers dirty a little bit, and teachers can get a sense of, oh, we're not talking about reading Wikipedia, we're talking about presenting. Really what you're seeing there is a lot. What we tried to do in this video is try to showcase the different ways of getting involved in Wikipedia and not just sitting at your computer and writing a new article. We also work with it outside the classroom. We have students that work with it in something called Servicio Social. All Mexican university students must complete a number of hours of community service in order to get their degree, and now working with Wikipedia is one of those options. As a matter of fact, most of them work with me right now directly, but I have a pilot group of 6 students. In fact, those students worked on this video, who got invited by the Popular Art Museum to work with them in video-wise, and what they produce for the museum will be put into a free license so that we can integrate it in Wikipedia as well, and I'm really excited about that project. The scenes from the library where Anna was from an event that we have every semester called Semana E, which is I Week. I stands for innovation and lots of other I words that they like. And the idea is that they don't have classes during that entire week, and instead they must work on a project. So the trip to Tepoztlan and taking the pictures was done as part of Semana E in March, and we're going to repeat that. We had done several things, but that was the most successful. And this year, so we have them going to 2 of the Mexico City boroughs to try to cover it as much as possible in collaboration with the National Anthropology and History Secretary.
Thank you, Lian. That's super exciting.
Thank you.
Right. Any questions on IRC? No? I think that's it. Let's
All
give
right.
a round of applause. Right, thank you. This concludes the lightning talks for August. See you next month.
Thank you.
Bye.